This right here is the brand new Sigma 300 to 600 millimeter f4 aperture lens. I've got it on Sony mount. They also have it for L-mount. But in this video, I want to tell you guys my thoughts on this lens after using it for a couple weeks. And yes, I paid for this lens with my own money. That hurts a little bit to say, but it's true. I wasn't sent this lens, so I have no agenda in making a review video that pleases Sigma or pleases whoever sent it to me. So I'm simply just giving you my honest advice on a lens that I paid full price for. My name is Austin James Jackson, professional outdoor photographer based in Southern Utah. Today I'm out in Grand Teton National Park, and I've spent the last couple weeks in Grand Teton and Yellowstone using this beast of a lens and getting all sorts of comments along the way about it. So I want to create a review video for this lens, telling you what I liked, what I didn't like about it, show you some footage using it, show you some images I took with it, and everything in between. So there's lots of videos out there where you can look at this lens and all the sharpness tests in the lab. But unfortunately, great photos don't come from the lab. So I wanted to do an in-field review where I actually use this lens, put it to the test, and give you my true and honest thoughts. So before we continue this video, I'm gonna go ahead and put this bad boy up on the tripod because I do not want to hold it for the duration of this video. And that is probably the first thing that you are going to be able to tell about this lens. This lens is big and it's heavy, but it is f4 all the way through. Now, this is heavier than most of the brands. The major camera brands have a 600 millimeter f4. This is gonna be a little bit heavier than most of those, not by a lot, but just a little bit. And it's a little bit bigger as well. But that's because you have increased features. You've got a 300 to 600 as opposed to just a 600 like those other lenses. And it's f4 all the way across, all the way from 300 to 600 millimeters, it's f4. So you can gather a ton of light. It's great for low light shooting. Now, one of the things that I really enjoyed is this tripod collar here. It's really comfortable to use. It's got this it's almost like a little leather grip, and it's really big, so you can hold it and carry the lens around, which you're gonna be doing a lot with this thing because it doesn't fit very easily in a backpack. Now, when you buy the lens, obviously it comes with the lens, that's a no-brainer. Also comes with a lens hood, a lens cover that I don't have on there right now, and then it comes with this bag. In all the review videos I watched before I purchased this, people really liked the bag. I didn't really like the bag, but more on this bag later. We'll talk about that a little bit down the road. All right, so let's talk about what I liked about the lens first. Now, that 300 to 600 millimeter range, so incredibly versatile. I'm someone on this trip, I'm photographing bears. There was sometimes where a bear would be close, like you're in your car driving by, there's a bear that's close, you wanna zoom out, get that 300 millimeters. Other times where the bear is far away, you wanna zoom way in. This is also gonna be a great lens. I haven't gotten to use it yet because it's more of a fall thing. I like to photograph moose out here, right in this field that I'm standing in right now. A lot of the images that I look back last fall that I shot, I'm at 300, 400, 500 millimeters, I'm not at 600. If you pick up one of the brands, the like Sony, Nikon, or Canon 600 f4, they are just 600. So if something's too close to you, you are screwed. You cannot zoom out. It's really nice to be able to zoom out on this lens. The throw is not too much. It's really nice. You can zoom in or out really, really quickly on this lens. Now, it is really, really sharp across the whole range. I cannot tell you, I've rented the 600 f4 from Sony. The sharpness, in my opinion, is very similar. But when you compare it to something like the Sigma 150 to 600, the Tamron 150 to 500, or the Sony 200 to 600, this thing is a step above when it comes to the sharpness of the lens. I took some photos last year I had a Sigma 150 to 600, and when I look at the images this year versus last year, when using this lens this year, obviously, my images are so much sharper. You can see all the little hairs on the faces of the animals. You can see stuff really far away. The landscapes are really sharp if I'm shooting something way in the distance. This lens is just a step above when it comes to sharpness. It's on a whole nother level, and for that reason, I really, really like it. Now, when it comes to the autofocus, it's fast and snappy. It is leaps and bounds better than both. I've used both the Sony 200 to 600 and the Sigma 150 to 600, and one of my friends has the Tamron 150 to 500. I know the focusing speed a lot faster here and a lot more accurate. I've never actually seen the eye autofocus on this camera with a telephoto lens before until I hooked this thing up. But now all of a sudden the eye autofocus is working a little bit better. Now, was the autofocus perfect? No, I'll be completely honest. The autofocus was not perfect. Do I attribute that to the lens or do I attribute that to the camera? I'll be honest, I truly think it is the camera. I'm shooting with a Sony A7R IV. It's really a landscape photography camera. It's not really meant for sports or for wildlife, but I'm using it for that. I love the 60 megapixels of the camera, but it struggles a little bit when it comes to autofocus. Now, when I hook this lens up to my Sony ZV-E1 that I'm capturing this video with right now, It has a lot better autofocus capabilities, and the focusing was nearly perfect. So I do think a lot of it matters what camera you're putting it on. Most of you guys picking up this lens, I'm guessing you're either shooting on an A7R series camera like me. A7R5 should have a little bit better autofocus, and when the A7R6 comes out, that should be even better. Or I'm guessing most of you guys thinking of buying this are probably using an A9 or an A1. So I think the autofocus will be fantastic on this lens, nothing to complain about. You've got all the regular switches that you do on a normal lens in terms of the autofocusing capabilities and making it nice and fast. So the next thing that really impressed me, the image stabilization. When I bought this lens, I was reading reviews online. People were saying there's no way you're ever gonna handhold it. And I was thinking the same thing. I'm a weak little guy. You can see I'm not very big. I'm not really bulky. I don't go to the gym. I like to do cardio, but I don't like to lift weights. So I'm weak. When I use this lens, I was totally thinking I'm never going to capture anything handheld, but I could not be further from the truth. I decided I was out shooting some bison one night with my friend. There wasn't really much going on that I really wanted to capture, but I said, let's try out the image stabilization capabilities. And I kept bumping the image stabilization down until I was no longer getting sharp images. Now you would be surprised to know I was all the way down at 1/60th and I was still getting about 75% sharp images, and that is completely unaided. You know, I'm just sitting on the ground holding my lens there in the air. I'm not like leaning on a car or leaning on anything or using a monopod or anything like that. So 1/60th handheld. Now personally, if I was shooting something that I really wanted to capture good images of, I wouldn't push the limits. I would probably go to like 1/200th to be safe. When I was shooting at 1/200th handheld, every single image that I shot came out completely sharp as long as I wasn't doing any like serious moving or running or anything like that. So really, really impressive image stabilization. You also have two modes. To be completely honest, I tested out image stabilization mode 1 a ton and 2 not quite as much. Number 1 is gonna be your general image stabilization for, you know, everything from whether you're on a tripod or shooting handheld or whatever. Number 2 is gonna be for panning. One thing that impressed me about the image stabilization, you can see it in this video here that I'll overlay, is that when you push the shutter halfway down, it starts the stabilization. So in this video, I'm like shaking the camera with my hand, and then now I push that shutter halfway down. Now you can see how much more stabilized it is. I'm still shaking it just as much, and it's so much more stabilized, so it works a lot better. Lastly, the other thing that I really like, you've got all these buttons and switches on the outside. You have switches in the back to do pretty much anything you could want to do, and then you have some custom buttons in the front. You have this kind of knob here that you can assign something to. I haven't assigned anything to it yet. I haven't decided what I want to do. You've got these buttons here, which you can assign. You have a few of them. I think you have 4 different custom buttons, so you can do so much with it once you really get into it. All right, so now exactly what you're waiting for. What are the cons of using this lens? Now you can probably guess. Con number 1 is that it's heavy. Now, image stabilization is totally fine, but just because it's heavy, it's a huge pain to carry around with you everywhere. It does have these 2 little loopholes here where you can put, I just have a Peak Design strap that I put on it so I can put it around my neck. I can sling it on my shoulder and carry it on my hip and walk. But however you want to do it, it is heavy. So it does take a lot to carry it. But you have to understand the reason why it's so heavy and so large is because you have f4 all the way across and you have that zoom range. There's not any other lens like it on the market. So you have to understand and accept the fact that it's heavy. In my opinion, this is something I'm totally fine with, because for most of the time, you know, if you're shooting sports, it's not like you're hiking. If you're shooting wildlife, oftentimes you're maybe not hiking. I like to hike a little bit. It wasn't too bad to carry. Definitely isn't comfortable, but it's definitely worth it for what you get, in my opinion. Now, another con, I don't know if this is just standard, if this happens on all the lenses. I'm not sure about the paint quality on this one. Now, I am not someone who's owned another 600mm f4, so tell me if I'm crazy for thinking this, but the paint on my tripod collar is already chipping off. I've only used this thing for a couple weeks, and in fact, after a couple uses, literally 1 or 2 uses, the paint is already chipping off the tripod collar. Is this a big deal? Does it matter? Not really, but when you spend $6,000 on something, you want it to look in pristine condition as long as possible. I take good care of my gear, so it drives me nuts. Now, also regarding that, you can maybe see on the lens, I've got these black scratch. It's not a scratch, it's like a stain almost. I was shooting with it on the edge of the car, resting it on the kind of window seal, and like the black leather or something kind of wore off onto the lens. I wasn't able to buff this out even with a rag or anything like that. I don't know if that's standard, tell me if that is, but I would say that that's probably a con, is that it's hard to keep it in good condition. Now, yes, I'm going to get a cover that's gonna go on the lens, but I literally got this thing 1 day before my trip, so I haven't got a cover yet, but that is another con. All right, now the bag. You wanna know why I don't like the bag? It might be a hot take, I don't know. No, so the bag is nice when you have the lens just by itself. It fits nicely. You know, you've got some straps on the back to carry it. You could even put a little tripod on the side. You've got some other pockets. So the bag is all right in that regard. Now, where I don't like it is that you cannot fit the lens in there with the camera on top very easily. You can really reef on it, but I didn't want to do that. But it feels like a missed opportunity to me to not have it so the camera can stay on the lens in the bag. If I'm out there shooting wildlife, a lot of times I have the bag in the back seat. I just want to be able to pull the lens out, start shooting. If I'm traveling with it, I might want my camera on it. There's a lot of reasons why I might want to leave my camera on the lens, because I don't want, every time I want to put the lens away and walk with it, I don't want to have to also unmount my camera, put my camera away. That just takes more time. I like to have my camera easily accessible, ready to shoot at all times. So it does feel like a missed opportunity that you can't put the camera on the lens and close the bag easily. Now, as a little addendum, something I forgot to mention yesterday when I was recording this video, as another one of the major cons to this lens, is that it only shoots 15 frames per second. That is limited by Sony, not by Sigma. The lens can actually shoot more, but when attached to a Sony camera, it can only shoot up to 15 frames a second. For me, this wasn't a problem at all because I'm not shooting wildlife that moves fast enough where I would want more than 15 frames per second, plus my camera can only shoot 10 anyways. But if you are someone who has an A9 or an A1 that does shoot more than 15 frames a second, you will be limited with this lens. Again, I don't see this being a big problem for most people because 15 frames a second should be plenty for almost anything that you could capture, unless you're shooting something very, very, very fast moving. But for your general everyday wildlife, everyday sports, things like that, I think 15 is enough. People in the comments will definitely let me know that I'm wrong, but in my opinion, 15 is more than enough in most case scenarios. But if this is a deal breaker for you, there's nothing that you can do because this lens is limited to 15 frames per second. All right, so who is this lens for? You're probably wondering if this lens is for you. If you're watching this video, you might be thinking about buying it. This lens bridges the gap between that like $2,000 range of those 3 lenses I mentioned earlier and the $13,000 to $14,000 range of that 600mm f4. As I mentioned, I've tried the 600mm f4 and now I own the Sigma. Honestly, if they were the same price, I would buy the Sigma 10 times out of 10. That extra zoom range makes it so much more versatile for so many more other things. Now if you buy the 600 f4, you also probably should buy the 400mm f2.8. That's even more money. You know, you're looking at like a car in terms of how much you're gonna be spending on both of these lenses. So literally just buy this lens rather than buying that $13,000, $14,000 lens, and then you can also afford a trip to go somewhere really cool to use the lens as well for the same price. So it's a no-brainer to me to buy this over that. It really bridges the gap between those two. I think this lens is going to make that Sony 600mm f4 pretty obsolete. Now, yes, the one downside people will talk about is that because it's an off-brand, Sony limits it to only 15 frames per second. So additionally, if you are someone like me who is rocking one of those mid-tier lens, Sony 200 to 600, Sigma 150 to 600, or the Tamron 150 to 500, this is well worth the upgrade if you can afford it. It's definitely not necessary, but if you want to take your wildlife or sports images to the next level, this thing is going to be so, so sweet. The first encounter I went to, we photographed this bear, and I got back in the car and looked at my images and I was like, man, look at the sharpness on that lens. I've never had this before. Look at how much it decimates the background at f4. Look at how much light it gathers, all that good stuff. This is a great lens. So truly, my unsponsored opinion after spending over $6,000 to get this thing for this trip is it's a great lens. I'm gonna be keeping it, I'm gonna be rocking it. I'm so excited. If you guys have any questions or you wanna see any more test images, let me know down below in the comments. Otherwise, my name's Austin James Jackson. I really appreciate you guys being here. And as always, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to improve your photography. Otherwise, that's all I've got for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This is Austin James Jackson. See you guys next time.